I hope many watching have heard of the new AI, ChatGPT, which has disrupted many forms of education in recent months. Much of the conversation around the phenomenon has been negative and uncertain, and I think that's reasonable considering how it's been used. Though, I consider something different that, as a student, excites me. First, I'd like to prove to you that this technology shares many of the same qualities that the printing press had. Second, I'd like to point out what parts of education this does not address. And third, I'd like to compel you to lean into being taught this way while understanding the pitfalls of an education facilitated entirely by AI. Let's get into it. Consider the printing press. Many historians think of this to be the catalyst of the Industrial Revolution. How we store information was made simpler, and thus the process of exchanging it was made quicker. What's exciting is, I think this shares many of the same qualities that AI has in its demonstrated ability to compile vast sources of information into quick, understandable sentences. While computer programs like ChatGPT require a big enough computer to operate, other software developers are making these programs smaller and smaller. Such a program could fit on your phone today. Such a program could also be trained on an entire text about a particular subject, and it not only shares the same quality as the text, being all the information you need in a small space, it's also indexed entirely intuitively. That is, to get a piece of information you know you are lacking about a subject, you don't need to take up the comparatively lengthy process of looking through the text, guessing where it might be located, looking at the table of contents, realizing it doesn't have its own item in the table of contents. You need only ask the AI for that piece of information. And this would only ever happen in the relatively rare conversation between the student and teacher without AI. Though this comes with the feeling that I think many of my audience will share with me when you hear that last sentence. While that is good in terms of information retrieval, it requires a diminished understanding of education in which students only learn specific, isolated skills. I hope you empathize with the sentiment that education isn't just learning specific and isolated skills. It's also developing your own unique self, contextualizing yourself in the world, and understanding what's important to you. This type of education isn't facilitated effectively by the cold, impersonal relationships one might have with AI in the classroom. That type of education requires a comfortable, personal dialogue. Now, I don't want you to think I'm saying AI is all bad for the classrooms because it's not an entire human with capacity for empathy. In fact, student-teacher relationships have become increasingly more impersonal under a broader process dubbed learnification, and resisting any new technology being brought into schools won't work to fix that. Briefly, learnification is the process by which educators are seen merely as facilitators of the learning process without being people with something unique to give to their students. And like I said, new technology and AI isn't the cause of that problem. But embracing this new technology without proper consideration could work to further divide the student and teacher and accelerate the process of so-called learnification. Technology is good. Looking past the printing press, it has revolutionized the way we talk to one another. But it is important to consider the type of communication that it promotes. A classroom which aims to undertake the tedious process of teaching children isolated skills could be facilitated entirely by AI. But as I've said, that requires a diminished understanding of what education is. Such a classroom is entirely learnified. Such a classroom leaves its students entirely on their own to figure themselves out and breeds aimless progress without ever actually questioning why the skills they're learning are associated with progress. With all this being said, I still want to lean in, experiment, and understand how to use tools like ChatGPT without getting it to do all my work for me. Like the printing press proved, convenience in how we store and access information breeds a skillful populace, and that's good. But without proper orientation to and with the world, some could argue that's all for naught. As a computer program can't really create a productive dialogue around one's own personal development unless you want to probe for the surface level values embedded within the AI's training text, one should seek that education out themselves. You shouldn't resist the change, but also don't allow it to further divide the student and teacher. Thanks for your time.